What's good, y'all? This is Krill from Out the Box. I'm back for another review video. Today, I want to talk about an album by an MC, a poet, one of my favorite poets of today, known as R.A.P Ferreira. He has a new album out entitled The Light Emitting Diamond Cutter Scriptures. Now, let me just say from the jump, when I heard that he was releasing this album, I was totally surprised. I didn't think we were going to get another album from him before the year is out, because he put out the Bobson album on the 1st of this year, which I had a really wonderful opportunity to talk to him about earlier in this year on my Out the Box Talks interview podcast. So I was able to build with him on that. So I was really excited to hear that he was putting out another album before the year was out. It really came when he released the first, I found out about it when he said he was going to release a single, which was the single entitled East Nashville. And when I saw that was released shortly after the announcement about the album coming out, literally, I think the album came out about a week or two right after the single got released. So anytime R.A.P Ferreira, or some of y'all may know him as Rory, anytime he drops an album, I know that it's going to be dense in terms of the lyrics. I know it's going to be the type of music that I'm going to have to sit with and really grasp the music as it goes, right? So that's always going to be the case, I think, with him as an MC. He's a very dense lyricist, but I think his replay value in terms of his releases are always strong. He puts out the type of music that you're going to have to go back to, right? And the beautiful thing about going back to his music, you always find new things. And the experience to me, especially with this release as well as Bobson, and I'm sure people will argue, his earlier releases as well, his music sounds like an experience. It sounds like a cohesive experience, as opposed to just each track kind of shining on their own. They just kind of sequence well together, where you feel like you're getting the full experience as you're going through the music. Mad Villain did that for me. When I first heard it, it wasn't like I could just separate tracks. It just felt like this, everything was kind of connected to each other. And that's how I feel about this project. So let's just start with the title, The Light Emitting Diamond Cutter Scriptures. The title alone is a title that's worth dissecting, right? And I'm just gonna try. I'm not saying I got the meaning behind the title down correct. But when you think of the idea of light, right? So the light being a good thing, right? It's kind of like the light is shining on some sacred words or some very meaningful words, right? Emitting diamond cutter scriptures. It's kind of like the light is shining and discharging sharp, meaningful words, right? Because scriptures can be meaningful, sacred, spiritual words, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I'm getting from this particular title. It's like shining the light. The light shines on meaningful words. So the album is 11 tracks, about 28 minutes and 42 seconds. So it's not a long project, but like I said, it feels like an experience as you listen through it, right? There's a number of different producers on here. I'll go through some of the producers as I go through each track. But let's start with track 1, which is entitled Contrapuntal. And it's produced by R.A.P, who actually has a number of beats on this album. And I love the way that this album starts off with this track, because it starts off very slow, Rory's voice is kind of dragging slow on that track as well. You even hear him singing a bit on the bridge. And he does that a number of times in his music. You hear him singing at times as well. So that was cool to kind of slowly introduce the album. And then we get track 2, Brother Muzane, Library Card. And that's actually produced by Brainweight. And the beat speeds up a little bit, but it's not sped up to the point where, you know, the drums are a little faster, but it's not, but the overall sound is still kind of mellow, right? Like, that's another thing with this album. It's very kind of laid back. It's not edgy. You know, it's not like loud and boisterous. It's laid back, and it has a very cool, relaxing vibe to it, right? And what's also really cool too is Rory's vocals seem to be on full display in terms of how it's being presented. Like it sounds like it's projected a little bit louder than the beat, so you could really emphasize on his vocals as opposed to the beat. But the beats equally accentuate and work well with the vocals, you know? So even though the beats sound lower than the vocals, it still complements it, right? So everything works together. I like this track, Brother Muzan, Library Card, because it has some really clever lines too. Rory has a line where he says, part the C's and fart in the key of E sharp, which is kind of a funny line. But in musical terms, E sharp is also the same as F, so F for fart. But that last part, you know, fart in the key of E sharp, when you think of what E sharp sounds like, and you think of a fart sound for that sound, it's just a little funny. Then he also has a line where he says, they used to call me Rory the Druid. I've been through it. I was born a weirdo, you know, so him kind of just talking about his personality a little bit, but also not being ashamed of it, right? Like, too many times in this society where we're shaming people for being different or so-called weird, you know what I mean? Him just kind of expressing it like, it is who I am, you know what I mean? And I'm good that I'm different, you know what I'm saying? Then he says at the end of that song, what it is, what it isn't, what it will be soon, what it is, what it isn't, what it will be soon. So I like his clever like wording with that last part too. It actually reminds me of a line from MF Doom on the JJ Doom album from the song Retarded Friend, where he says, it's just begun to begin to end, to start back again for smart men and women. Somehow that line reminds me of that. Then we go into track Hyperion, which is still laid back, but the drums are also fast on that record as well. And I just like the vibe of it. It still stays in the sequence of what we're hearing already. Then we go into track Wedding Cake 8, which is produced by Gibbs Freelance. And I really like that track. Rory has some really interesting lines on there too. He says, picture my flow as seagulls shitting on you. Then you actually hear the seagulls in the background. You hear like the ocean and the seagulls in the background. So that's pretty cool that the producer added that. And then he has a line on there where he says he only played games that he win at. I only play games that I win at, which, if you're familiar with MF Doom's Hey, that's a pretty prominent line on MF Doom's Hey track from Operation Doomsday, his debut MF Doom album. So yeah, man, so far I'm loving like the vibe of it, the laid back, jazzy, you know, subtle vibe. Then we go on the track Humboldt Park Jabritos, produced by Argove, and it has a really nice like saxophone sound on there. That's one of my favorite tracks on the album. The drums are really cool. They're like medium pace, and it has like a very jazzy, light feel to it, you know, but the saxophone kind of stands out. I believe it's a saxophone. And Rory has a few cool lines on there. He says, telling Dunny, don't worry about the wording, it's more about the feeling. It's more about the feeling. Ran out screaming, make it make sense. So I think what he's saying in that line is, and I could be wrong, but I think what he's saying in that line is telling like the listeners, like when you listen to his music, don't try to get caught up in the lyrics so much. Even though I think it's good to listen to the lyrics and get the meanings out of some of the lyrics, he's saying just go with the vibe, right? And I have to say, when I first started listening to this album, before even tapping into the lyrics and deciphering it, the vibe is what really got me. I was just like, wow, this feels good. This sounds good. It sounds different. And, you know, I like things that sound different. But it also sounded, it's abstract, but it's musically, it's relaxing. I don't know if that makes sense. It's abstract, but musically it's relaxing. You can vibe to it. Yeah, so he also has a few lines on there where he says, algorithms keep telling me I'm not sexy. I haven't been listening. So I like those play on words too, and how he, you know, I like how he referenced algorithms in that sense. And then we got track 6, Gemma Lutz, Hashadim. Listen, there's a lot of really interesting song titles as well. And some of these titles, I ain't gonna front, they're a little difficult to pronounce, so I hope I'm getting them right. But I like that record as well. That's produced by Brennan Caroselli. And it's really, like, what I think shines about that record is the excerpts, the audio excerpts that you hear in the beginning and end of the song, where they're talking about they're talking about art and the importance of art, and you know how it's about being alive. He also has an interesting line on there where he says, blessed defiance, the road to hell is piloted with compliance. And then he has another line where he says, natural gum lining, me, well, I'm like a summer's day when it hail, but the sun's shining. So like a lot of bars on this track, and also just a lot of clever lines throughout the whole album. You know, another thing I wanted to mention about Rory is that he has a very clever way of saying things. He'll say something and he'll choose another way to express it outside of the obvious. You know, so like he'll say a line that he could have easily said it like really simply, but he'll use another way to say it. And I think that's dope. Like with that line where he says, natural gum lining me, well, I'm like a summer's day when it hail, but the sun's shining, right? When that happens, what do you think of, right? When it's sunny and it's hailing, and it's raining, but the sun is still shining. That's a little different, right? Like you don't, that's a little unexpected, right? That's a bit unique, you know? So it's kind of like him referring to himself being different and unique. So he could have simply just said, I'm different and unique, but he chose to put it in a double entendre and in a metaphor sense. So that was dope. Then the track Black Mission Figs, produced by Eldon, who's also featured as an MC on that track too. I think that might be one of probably my favorite track on the album, next to the final track on the album. But yeah, I just like the way that record sounds. That record sounds really good. Eldon did an awesome job producing it and also featuring on it for his MC vocals. Ferreira got a line on there where he says, I go a little bit deeper than the average MC, and for this I receive self-mastery. So I thought that was really cool how he threw that in, right? Like he's letting you know, I'm not like your average MC. I definitely go deep with my lyrics, which he certainly is, you know what I mean? And then we go into the single, East Nashville, which was the pretty much first track that was released. And that's produced by Vastness. And, you know, he's definitely going in on that. That track to me is sort of like median in terms of the sound. Like, it sounds similar to most of what you're hearing on the album. It's not my favorite track on the album, but it works. It works. And I saw why they put it out. It's kind of like a single. He actually says this a few times in the music. Rap Ferreira and I will rap forever. Rap Ferreira and I will rap forever. So I like that. It's like a tagline on the album. You hear him say it a lot. And it's funny, if you listen to that song, you hear him like, it sounds like he's snapping at something in the beginning, and then it just goes right into the music. And then there's a line on there where he references, he says, pulled up in that big body with the paint job Peppa Pig. So he's actually referencing the pink Cadillac that's on the album cover of X-Clan's album To the East Backwards. So if you don't know about the X-Clan, they were like a Black Power hip hop group back in the, I believe like in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And their music was very like revolutionary and like, you know, definitely speaking for the rights of the people and stuff like that. And on that album cover, they had like a pink Cadillac. So he's actually referencing that if people didn't catch it. Moving along, the next track, Praise and Worship, also produced by Argove. That's another track I really like. He says, in the corner of the sky, where indigo become purple, where standing on your square earn you a tight circle. That's a dope line right there. But I love this beat. I think it's a very warm beat, as most of the beats are on this album. It's warm. It has like a jazzy feel to it. But I feel like his vocals really kind of like stand out, right? And the beat just subtly works with these vocals. Then we have the track Uptown 37, which is produced by Nalipa and Tony Beverly Aqua. This is a nice track too. I like how it works within the sequence of everything we've heard so far on the album. He has a few really cool lines. One of the standout lines actually comes as his delivery is sort of in the pocket, and you really feel him being in the pocket. He says something like, the point became a vantage, advances in advantage, make us candid, communicating in glances. You will know us by the shining of our lances. That you can see like he's in the pocket and in the rhythm with that. And then the final track on the album, entitled Hot Breath, which is produced by Pink Navel. This is another one of my favorites. I think between Black Mission Figs, Praise and Worship, and Hot Breath, those are like my favorite tracks on the album. And my two favorites, I want to say, is Black Mission Figs and Hot Breath. So between those two, I don't know which one I like better, but those are like my top songs on the album. And that's a really dope record that they close out the album with. I like that Pink Navel went with a very subtle beat to close out the album, but Rap Ferreira's rhyming on this track is just really good. You know, there's so much quotables in there, and like I said, you got to really keep listening. He has a line where he says, hustling the margin of error can be an accomplishment. And then he says, when I rap, it sounds like arguing among people. I'm with the ish like a dung beetle. The idea was to use funk to fight evil. It's a lot of nice quotables on there, man. And I like the fact that, like I said, he does it in this metaphorical way, or this double entendre, that you really have to sit and think, okay, what is he talking about, right? So what I deduce from what he said when he says, when I rap, it sounds like arguing among people, I think what he's trying to say is like, most people won't be able to understand what he's saying, you know? It takes time, right? So it's like the person that's listening, they might, I can't get what he's into, but because his rhymes are pretty abstract, you know? But he's letting you know, I understand that you're not going to get this like that, you know? You might need to listen a number of times to get it. So I like how he uses that line there. And I believe that's what he's saying. if I'm not mistaken. And then he also has another line where he says, "I'm not the thinker, I'm watching the thinker." I thought that was a clever line, and I equated it to, like, you know, when they say when you're practicing like mindful meditation or practicing quieting the busy mind, it's good to kind of take a step back and observe your thoughts, you know, instead of just like randomly thinking and randomly just letting yourself worry yourself. I equated that line to him kind of just saying, yo, I'm able to stop and just observe my thoughts, right? That's what I'm getting, you know, and that's usually a place of peace, of inner peace, where you can stop and quiet the mind and kind of hover above the thoughts, those random thoughts. So that was a clever line, man. So yeah, man, I mean, I didn't really go through every track line for line, word for word. I tried to give you just little quotables that I got, and you know what I got from some of the tracks in general. But I will say overall, it's really a subtle, jazzy, laid back listen. That's the experience I get from this album. And in that last track, Hot Breath, I felt like when I heard it for the first time, it didn't even feel like it was the last track. It felt like there was more coming. So I thought that was a good thing, you know, in terms of just reflecting on the album. It left me like kind of wanting more, but it also put me in a place of like, okay, if it's finished now, then I get to start it over again and get the things that I missed. So overall, this is a very solid listen. I don't know if I like this album better than Bob's Son yet, but it's new, so I gotta sit with it. But I like the effort that Rory put on this album. I like the overall listen. I'm definitely gonna go back and listen to it more, you know. But like I said, it's like a jazzy, relaxing, laid back, subtle vibe, and it really puts you in a vibe. So big ups to R.A.P. Ferreira. Rory, you did it again, man. 2 classic albums in 1 year, man. 2 solidly dope albums. Big ups to the Ruby Yacht crew as well, man. Pink Naval, all the folks over there, man, that's doing their thing. Much love, man. I'll catch y'all on the next video. Thank y'all for checking out another video. I'll make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not yet. And I'm gonna try to do more review videos. I've been a little bit behind on my review videos, but I'm gonna be doing more. All right? Peace, love, and light. Talk to y'all later.